Hello and welcome to the BRC Disaster Desk. Today we are highlighting a practical new resource for municipal finance directors and public sector leaders navigating disaster recovery. After a disaster, the focus is often on restoring services, clearing debris, and repairing damaged infrastructure. But behind the scenes, finance teams are dealing with something equally critical: documenting costs, managing cash flow, and protecting reimbursement eligibility. Our team at Berquist Recovery Consulting has spent years working alongside municipal finance directors, school business officials, utility operators, and nonprofit CFOs recovering from disasters. Based on that experience, we've developed a practical guide that outlines the key financial issues every public entity should understand early in the recovery process. One of the most important things to remember is that FEMA Public Assistance is a reimbursement program. Emergency work such as Category A debris removal and Category B emergency protective measures may be eligible for reimbursement, along with permanent repairs to infrastructure and public facilities under Categories C through G. But those costs must be properly documented and tied to eligible work. Hazard mitigation efforts may also qualify for reimbursement. Finance teams should ensure they are capturing detailed labor records, equipment usage logs, contractor invoices, procurement documentation, and proof of payment. If the documentation does not clearly show who performed the work, when it occurred, where it occurred, and why it was necessary, reimbursement may be at risk. It is also important to remember that disaster recovery does not end when the repairs are finished. FEMA projects must eventually go through final closeout, and many public entities are subject to state or federal audits years after the disaster event. Strong documentation practices from the beginning help protect the organization when those reviews occur. Procurement compliance is another area where many organizations run into trouble. Public entities must continue to follow their own procurement policies, including any emergency procurement provisions, and federal procurement standards still apply. In many cases, properly procured pre-existing contracts can simplify the recovery process and reduce risk. Another major challenge is cash flow. Because FEMA typically reimburses permanent work after costs are incurred and paid, many public entities must front significant capital before reimbursement arrives. That gap between paying contractors and receiving FEMA funding can create real financial pressure. Some organizations rely on internal funds, state assistance programs, FEMA community disaster loans for operational revenue losses, or short-term borrowing structured around expected reimbursements. Finally, many public entities choose to bring in disaster recovery consultants to help manage documentation, project formulation, and compliance. When properly procured and tied to eligible work, those consulting costs are often reimbursable as part of the FEMA program. To help finance teams stay organized, the guide also includes a simple disaster finance checklist covering key early actions such as establishing disaster cost codes, centralizing documentation, reviewing procurement procedures, and evaluating cash flow exposure. If your organization is navigating disaster recovery or preparing for future events, you can download the guide on our website. And if you have questions about FEMA Public Assistance compliance, procurement, documentation strategy, or disaster recovery financing, our team at Berquist Recovery Consulting is always available to help. For the BRC Disaster Desk, I'm Megan Rains. Stay safe, stay prepared, and we'll see you next time.